my lovelies. Just let me check my text real quick. And let me get my Twitch pulled up. We're going to be going over a couple things today. Mainly, we're going to be walking through some tutorials on what I've learned so far. But we're also going to walk through a few things with Jermaine when we eventually get him in the chat. And hopefully this will be a learning experience for both of us. We can learn from each other. You guys have no idea how often it is that I realize I haven't eaten anything in a while until I'm right about to stream, and I realize, oh, I'm hungry. Should grab something. And then I annoy you guys with my crunching. Excuse me. Hello, Jermaine. Good to see ya. Good to hear ya. Well, actually is no hearing because I can't hear ya. So it's a bit redundant. I think I'm actually saying that. I don't know, actually. You know, I think I'm one of the few people who unironically like saltines. Got a nice crunch, they got a slight saltiness. Not too flavorful, not too bland. I like them. And yes, I am eating them right now. Not Twilight. Where's her bloody outfit? There it is. I started doing that. I've decided I'm going to start doing that for all my drawings of ponies. That way we can actually see like what patterning and what cutie mark they have on under, so it's easier to reference them if I have to draw them again. Now, actually, what is it? To go over some of the topics we were talking about, including the fur covering the hoof problem we were talking about, I am going to do the redesigns. Just gotta decide who I want to work on. There's them. Now, where's the original redesign for them? No, it's not her. I gotta find him. Is that it? I want Mo. Mom. It's not my fault your face was in the window like a bloody paper. Of course I would think you... For context, my people. My mom was outside. Completely dark out. I see a face pressed to the screen of the window. Of course, I scream. Not knowing it's my mom, she starts laughing her bloody ass off. It's really bad for her right now because she's sick as hell. I remember, don't say my name. Of course I think you... Oh, babe. But yeah, these are the ones we were working with. We just never finished the Twilight redesign concept. Let's see here. Who do I want to go next? You know what? Let's go with Rainbow Dash. I'm sorry for talking with my mouth full. This is the main thing we want to focus on. First, we're going to do the first steps. Deciding on what the face is going to look like, because that's going to determine the whole rest of the design. I do like what I did with her face here, but I think I made her too serious. Because Rainbow Dash, she's more fun and honestly pretty immature. Oh. Wrong one. I gotta remember how I did the face on the other one. Okay, yes. I want her to have a more subtle smirk. I want her to be aerodynamic, because, you know, bird. For some reason, I'm really imagining her hair to go out from her head like an actual bird's feathers. Even though that's not how I imagined my Pegasi. We might have to workshop that. I'm gonna go back to that concept I had when I had the MS Paint ones. Of them being, Pegasi being more bird inspired, because I do like that concept. I'm just not gonna take it to the extreme I did before. I'm gonna be less literal with it. Oops. Forgot to separate the layers. I need to pull up the reference. I need to pull up a reference for this one. That way we actually get the right look. Is there a version that's fused together? No, there's not. Is there? What? Yeah, his FaceTime's not working. It's not working on mine. Just call him regularly. Carla, her phone's working now. One moment, everyone. I just gotta do this so we can get an actual reference to base everything off of. To do that, I need to fuse everything together. There. Copy. Turn off. This one, that way we can get the proportions right for the next one. Okay. Now how to serve. What is the fastest bird? I'll have to look it up on the phone. I don't have my computer. I've just been looking at you guys from my phone. What is the fastest flying bird? Peregrine falcon. Okay, image. Okay, they're blue. I can work with that. So I'm gonna need, in the future, remind me to get Peregrine falcon references up. What? Don't FaceTime, just call. Regular phone call. No phone calls either? Could just be the reception there. Whoa, ma! Okay. We're gonna start on everything now that we have a solid base for the little feet. Okay. See how the hoof is completely straight here? My hooves, I usually do something different, but we're just gonna do an example of more based on the actual My Little Pony hooves. You see how I'm doing this? I'm gonna sort of copy the way you did yours. Sort of makes a drastic overhang. But if you did it like this, give me a second, I'm gonna copy it over, that way we can compare it side by side. you can still keep that long hoof look, while also making sure it doesn't do a drastic off swoop. Now, if you want it to have a lot of fur hanging off, you can still do a swoop from up here to compensate for it. But you also have to be careful with this one, because you see how it sort of looks awkward right here, where I tried to connect them? So instead of trying to do a connection like that, I'm just gonna move this over a bit more. You would want to try to go for something more like, it helps if I do it actually over, like this. And you can do dramatic sweepings, or you can do sort of clipped sweepings to better pull it in. As you can see, you want to make sure that when you're finally fusing the two sweeps, they do a nice sweep. But you can see, look, you see right here, it looks awkward at this angle now. It's all about compensating for the other sweeps to make sure that they all connect right. So instead of doing what I did before, you do a slight sweep in the front just to do an overhang to make sure that the hoof's completely covered on both sides, the look. Then you do a slight sweep here. And if you want connected sweeps, I would recommend doing it a little sharper of an angle. That way there's a little bit more of an overhang there to let it look more like it's two separate pieces. Then I recommend doing a slight swoop the other way, just to give it an illusion of hugging the hoof. And then you can make it as long as you want. I'm going to go for a longer look just to show you what I mean. Because it doesn't matter how long you make it, as long as you compensate for it up here. Do a slight sweep up just to show how it's connecting, and then do a sweep up. And then you want to delete some of the line here to compensate for the fact that you're connecting there. And voila! Long hoof fur without all the extra sweeps, making it sort of look awkward. But I usually go lower on the hoof when I do my furs. That way I don't have to worry about as much sweeping, unless I'm doing a stylized version of it. Okay, now that we're off the topic of those ones, which subject do you want to move on to next? Do you want to move on to shading or slightly separating like different cells of a thing? Okay, shading. For that, we're going to need a whole new image. Or we can sort of work off of this one. You see how in the background it looks off-putting because it's all white? We're going to have to do a little landscape to deal with the background. We're going to have to do the floor first. We're going to make it a similar green because they're both plants, but we're going to make it a slightly different saturation and a slightly different hue. Just a little off-put it a bit. Now switch your brush from the sketch to a regular old original, or whatever brush you prefer. I prefer the, what is this? Why does it keep doing that? Dear. Oh, excuse me. I prefer the Stanley original. I don't know if you have Procreate or if you're just doing something else, but always go with the brushes you're most comfortable with until you get the technique down. That way you can apply it to your other brushes as you're learning them. That applies for like pencils and other types of materials as well. You see how it's not blending in? Now sometimes that's a good thing, because you want it to... Okay. Sometimes that's a good thing, because you want something to stand out. In this case, because it is a plant, we do not want it to stand out. So it would make a huge difference again, and we would change the color of this to slightly better match it. Just a slight shift on that. That way it's better fits, but you can still see the differentiations. See? But to do it better even further, you would have to remove the shading in between the roots. So, remove those. How it fits better again. Now, to go even further, we would have to get a brush that would let us have a little flick, or you can just do it a different way, but I usually prefer to have a brush with a little flick. Like that. Now you want to make it a little thinner and start adding little strands of grass. Not a lot, just enough to start adding a little different differentiation. Start lighter first, that way you can start building it up. Now you want to start covering everything, because it's the grass, you want to make sure it's covered. Most people prefer to do thinner strands of grass. I like mine thicker, at least so I can show people what I'm doing. Now you want to add a darker shade, and you want to put that under this layer. But you don't want to go that dark, because that's way too big of a difference. Sometimes it's harder to get the differences when you have such little wiggle room. See? You can see how they're interacting. And you'll see how they are interacting and sort of making a better... Well, if you don't want to do any grass, you just sort of make the hue the exact same, and then you would do a subtle difference. So if you want to do that kind of thing, give me a second to just... We're gonna color pick this one, and then we're gonna do a big brush over it. Big old brush, big old brush, big old brush. And we're gonna do that just so we can see what we're doing. We're gonna select, and we're gonna put it over. This is just so I can show you how to do it. Usually I don't actually do that. We want to make sure we have a slight hue difference for this. So you just want to do a slight little blink. Now, we're going to very subtly go around the base. It's very, very subtly. And we'll adjust it as we go. We just want to get the outline for now. That way we can actually adjust it as we go. Now we're going to do that. And you can see how it's standing out. You don't always want it to do that. So you want to subtly, there we go. You want to subtly start shading it out, or erasing it to be the lines thinner. Give me a second while I erase these extra bits. There. Now we want to subtly start erasing. until it's so close you can barely see it. And you want to start doing that to where it can blend into it. The bottom you want to leave completely out to be blended in. Okay. Because of the platform you use, I'm going to do a different way of doing it. I'm just showing you the way I do it, but okay. You see how they look exactly the same? Because of the program you use, it's going to be different. We are going to subtly add color until we can see where it's ending. Add color, add color, add color, add color, and you see where it's ending. Now you want to start slightly, you want to completely erase it at the ends, that way it blends in perfectly. But you want to so slowly delete the rest of it to where it blends in, and then you just do that, and you thin it out a little bit more, and there. A subtle definition to let you know the flowers right there, and where it's sprouting. Now we're going to do it again on this side, even slower, that way we can make sure we're following along, okay? You see how it's like that? You want to completely erase the bottom. Doop, doop, doop. Oh, I wish Rabbit was here to delete that AI thing. I don't know how to do it on my own. Then we're going to slowly erase from the side until you can see how thin it's starting to get. And then you just slightly more until it's very thin. You can barely notice it. We're going to have to do some more erasing on this side. It's too thick. And then, voila! Subtle difference to let you know that it's gone. Now for the shading bit. Because of the way the grass is, we're going to show you how to do a bit of a heel. So we're going to get this color. We're going to do a slight hue shift, slight color difference. We're going to get the big coloring brush. Go, oh, wrong one. Going to go. And you see how it already looks like there's something, it's slightly behind? Okay, now we're going to want to adjust that color just slightly to make it less obvious, because we don't want it to be super far behind, we just want to be a subtle look. We're just going to make it a little bit brighter, and we don't want it to match the rest of the colors. And we're going to make it a little brighter again, just subtly. And that lets it stand out a bit more. Now you want to remember, because this is an actual flower, it's going to have a shadow. So we're going to start adding the shadow. And we're going to add it to the hill behind. So you want to get a slightly different color, like a bit darker. And very carefully, you are going to start outlining it. Now, you see how that's differentiating already? You can see how the color on the leaves that I used to highlight it is now clashing with the rest because it's a different hue. That's one of the things you want to look out for with getting all your layers together if you're painting on digital. You're not really able to go back later to shift things. Okay, we're going to do the same thing we did for the flower before, except we're going to do it a little different. We're going to do it less close-knit because we want to make sure you can see that the shadow is spreading out to the way it is. And then we're just going to erase the excess, like always. And this one we want to keep completely covered in shadow right there. And then get rid of this one. And then we're just going to slightly more. You also got to consider where you want the light source to be coming from. I want the light source to be coming from up here. And to help me remember that, I'm just going to make a subtle thing. Just remember where our light source is coming from, because that's going to determine how the shadows move. So I'm just going to do a quick sketchy scoop of a little bit of light bulb. Excuse me. Now the light is going this way. So any light source, you have to remember, will come from this corner. It cannot come from this one, it cannot come from below, and it cannot come from this way. It cannot come from directly above either. It has to come from here. Once you've set your light source, you can sort of start shifting things. You see how I have all the lights like this? Because of the way I've done the light source, I can no longer have it like this, how it's on both sides. If I wanted to be able to keep that sort of light source, I would have to change where our light source is going to be from. So it's going to have to be, let's see here, like right here, just to allow for that kind of shadowing on both sides. So it's going to have to be right here now. That's where our light source is going to be. And remember, in each drawing you can have like secondary light sources. When I was first learning how to do it, it was a very big process to take in. I think eventually I am going to do like an art book tour of what I was learning. That way we can go over those as well, just so you guys can see how I did it in actual physicality and not just in an art program that makes things a little bit easier, because I have more freedom of what I'm doing and I don't have to be as careful. Because I can go back on my mistakes, learn from them, and correct them more easily. Do you want to move on to a different subject and leave this for a future topic? Because this seems like it might be overwhelming you a bit. Because there's a couple topics we can cover. I just want to do the ones that you think would benefit you most right now. Okay. What kind of topic do you think is going to benefit you the most right now, Janine? Because then we can start covering that. Yeah, I think we're going to have to do a bit different with the backgrounds, because if you want to do it differently, we're going to have to slow down a bit and go from the basics. Now let's start with colors. There's a couple different kind of backgrounds you can do. It's almost limitless. You can do basic nature backgrounds, you can do room backgrounds, or you can do basically anything can be a background. So what kind of background do you want to mainly focus on? Because there's different techniques for each kind, basically, because of the different kinds of lighting that you can get in. A beach. Okay. Actually, I think I can actually show you what. Now, I can show you a beach I've done before. Just keep in mind that I did this for a thumbnail like a really long time ago. If I can find it. What happened to it? This is really bad. This is when I was first starting it out, and I did copy a lot of the actual Bugsnax logo, like introduction. Oh, Jermaine, you don't have to worry about like step by step. If you really need to go over it again, we can in future videos, or you can watch it again on your phone, like slow down when I post it, because you are able to slow things down so like you can actually watch it step by step, because I know I can go over things pretty fast. Now for a beach. We want to keep it very simple at first. Just get the colors blocked in. But to do that, we have to make sure we do a little sketchy poo. Now for the kind of beach I'm going to go for, it's going to be a sidelong beach, just so you can see how the water would interact with the sand, like I did for the Bugsnax one. So we're going to do it very subtle. Then we're going to go over it very subtly with a wave. And you got to remember, waves sort of curl in like this when they're breaking on the shore. And they curl in also. And remember, like what most things, you gotta make sure you have some motion in your work. Right now I'm just adding them so I can remember where to put them after the sketch is done. Now, we're going to add a few simple things. First, we got to determine where we want the light to come from. I'm going to determine right now, before we do any colors, any blocking in, the light will come from here. That way we can determine that the light can go down from here, the light can go down from here, 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 and here. But it always has to have the shadows have to be on the underside, because the light is shining from up. So let's say I have a bucket right here. You see how the light would be shining from like right here down onto it? Okay, so I'm gonna use some different colors. Orange is gonna be regular color. So we got our regular color bucket, just a plain old orange bucket. And we're gonna fill the color in just so I can show you how the shading would work. Okay, now that we've got the block color in, we can add the shadow. Since the light is coming from up here, we can add the shadow on the below. And it gets a little more complicated on if you have a handle or not, but I'm just going to say in this scenario, we do not have a handle on this bucket. It's just a plain bucket, no handles. Now we're going to subtly fix all the little imperfections. just straighten out the lines a bit. Curve out the bottom of the bucket a bit more. Straighten out the lines a bit more. You see, buckets are a bit more complicated because not only do they have the side, but they also have the fact that they are a container. So we're going to add, we're just going to add the bucket hole. And that adds a little bit of a different sort of context. Because now you have to consider, how will the bucket look now that you've actually added the bucket hole? You gotta make sure that the bucket has the lip all around. And the lip will also need to be shaded, but it'll have to be a different color because it's a different kind of shadow. It can't be just one shadow. It's a different way of it going because it's higher up on the shadow. This is a more side shadow. This is a front on shadow. You got it so far? Okay, now we're going to make it a little bit more complicated by adding in that handle. So, to add the handle, we're going to do one little boop right there, one little boop right there, and then we're just going to add, I say we add it like this. And you won't think that would make much difference. But now we have a new shadow to worry about because not only is it a regular little metal handle, we're going to make it a little more complicated to fully show what we're showing. We're going to have an actual handhold on the handle. So that adds a little extra depth to the shadow that we're going to have to add. So, now that we have a shadow like that, it cannot come from above here because the shadow is coming down. So it has to go like so, completely underneath. You can't go above at all because it's an above light source. If it was below, the shadow would be coming out this way instead of this way. Do you get it so far? Okay. Now that's how we did our bucket. But we're going to move on to something that's a little more complicated that I haven't really tried myself either. And we're just going to keep this. I'm going to grayscale it. Just because. With it grayscaled, I can work on the other things with the full color balance. And we're just going to leave our bucket here. Now, this is something I haven't really practiced myself because I don't really do backgrounds. I'm more of a character designer than a backgrounds person. So we're just going to work on it together. We're going to work on something a little more complicated. We can either work on trying to do a sandcastle with more shadows, or we can try and work on the actual wave and how you would have to do the motion in it. I think sandcastle would be an easier one to do for starters because the wave would have a lot more subtle shadows and highlights and everything because it's water and it's in motion. Or do you want to go on to more practice like the bucket? because I've remembered a very good practice I learned in art class that involved a lot of things casting shadows onto each other from the main light source. And it really helped me understand how to do shadows, because each thing was leaning against each other, so it would create a new sort of shadow. Okay, a little bit more practice with like the bucket style. For this, we're going to do something slightly different, because we're going to be working on the shadows. We need a longer size canvas. That'll do. Okay, first of all, we're going to get our flat surface to put everything on, just so we can better look how we're going to do this. So we're going to do, and fill the color with orange, just so we can get a nice solid color. And we're just going to stretch it out, and stretch it out. We're going to slightly thin it. And we're just going to make it brown to represent a table. Okay. Now, first things first, we got to decide where we want our shadow to be. I say, because we had one here last time, we can go for one over here. This will be our light bulb. Now, we're going to sketch things out first, just so we can really go over how we're doing it. And keep in mind, it's been a couple years since I've done this practice, but I'm pretty sure I know actually how I remember how to do it. First, we're going to do the thing that's closest to the light source. So I say a big old pot. No, a vase. Yeah, big old vase. Now, you see this big old vase is interrupting the way for the light to get to everything else. So, when we're making the rest of the items, we're going to have to consider the shadow this is casting on everyone else. Because it has light in front of it, so it's going to cast a shadow. And it's going to be a very big shadow. Let's move on to our next item. We can do a little orange. No, it's going to be a bowling ball because I'm bored. It's going to be a big old bowling ball, subtle difference. And you'll see, I'm just going to show you. See how this goes from here? The light is here, so it can only cast a shadow to there. From there. I'm just going to do this. That way you can see the exact angle of the light. You can only cast light from there to there. Or to here. That is all the light you can cast. But there's a problem with that. You see, the light is interrupted by the big vase right here. Light can't get to the rest of this area. So instead, it's all shadow cast from the big vase. So, because of how it's showed, you see where it would go? The light is now shadow cast by the vase from there to there. So we would delete the light source of what it would be. Now that is all going to be shadow of the vase. But you also have to consider now, if there's something smaller than the bowling ball shadow would go like this, covering that. But if it's something larger than the bowling ball, it would still be partially covered by the bowling ball shadow. But The rest would be covered by the vase. And if it's bigger than the vase, it wouldn't be covered by any shadow, but it would also be getting barely any light because it's a top-down light. Are you with me so far? Okay. Now we're going to add a few more items just to show the differentiations, like I said, in shadows. Okay. We're going to give... This is going to be a big old stereo. And you see, barely covered by each other shadow. And the shadow on this part would be a lot darker because it's covered by two shadows. Because this shadow is covering this part and this part, but this shadow is only covering this part. So this part right here would be very dark compared to the shadow from here. Now, I'm just going to draw on our light bulb. That way we can actually get the sort of light difference on it. Now we're just going to do in a simple light bulb. Very bright, very light. And we're going to change the color of the background because we're going to have it different. Because you can't really see the light difference if it's all white. And we're just going to do this to visualize everything. There. You see? The light goes like that. But you'll also see, when we finally add in the colors for the vase and everything, it gets interrupted. So it has to be shadow instead. And I'm going to show you that. And we're going to make it a nice light blue vase with a slightly darker color. Okay, and the center will be a slightly darker color. And we're just going to do that. And then because of the way we're doing the rim, we have to slightly thin it out until it goes thicker around the edges again. You see how there's a slight difference on the rim? And you see how the light's affecting it. And once again, we're going to make this slightly lighter because the rim is going to be higher up. Now we're just gonna we're not gonna add any patterns to the things right now, just because we're trying to do it very subtly, just showing differences. See? Now, because the big old vase is in the way, I'm just gonna erase the light. It would also go out from under the table. Oops. We gotta make sure the color is also off from this table. Yeah. Now you also gotta remember how it's gonna. Yes! Exactly, Jermaine. You're learning pretty quick. Now, you also gotta remember, it won't completely shine like that. Because of the way it is, the light will only partially go onto there. So we gotta make sure we show that. So yes, it go on the rim, yes. But we also gotta remember, it won't go all the way around because of the way it's posed. So, gotta get rid of some of the light. Now we're gonna just sort of fuse that in. Just show the light shining there. See? Subtle differences make the big old diff. Look, now you can see the light is shining down, but it's not completely consuming the orb. Yes! And very good, Jermaine. And you can see it, the light is subtly shining on it, so it's sort of slightly changing the color, but it's not a big old block. Do you get it so far? Very good, very good, very good. Now, we haven't actually gotten into any of the shading or the shadow. We're mainly just showing how the light is affecting the actual objects. Now, light will also affect the table, but in a very different way. You're just gonna steal that light bulb there, just so I can add a bit of color. And we made it to 50, so I'm just gonna do big old swoop of that. Nope. Yep, big old swoop of that. And it can't go under, but can shine on the table. There, see? It's shining on the table, but nothing else. Now I'm going to show you how the vase affects the table. Just got to get a slightly darker color. And I'm not going to completely surround it, because that's not how shadows work. Now we're just going to slightly blend it out. Not too much, because we still want it to be present. And there we go. Now I'm just going to remove the sketch of the vase, because we're done with the vase now. And I'm going to remove the lighting. And you'll see. You can barely notice it, but it's there. You can see the difference. It's harder to see when you have the light, but you can still see it. Now I'm going to change the background color. And you can see how the light is affecting things. And you can also see I didn't blend this in enough. Yeah. You're seeing how things are affecting it. I think next time I do a drawing stream, I'll show you how to do the like glass and bubbles. That way you can see how light and color affects things that are transparent. That way we can sort of see how shadows don't really affect transparent things the same way they do things that are fully solid. It's the same way light doesn't really affect things the same way if it is a liquid. But we'll get onto that topic next time. Do you think you have enough understanding of this topic? Or do you want me to go over it a little bit more before I end the stream? Because I'm going to be honest, I'm so sorry, but I am tired. I don't know what's going on. Maybe I'm just so tired of being sick. Because we are going to be covering this more on our own, not on stream, because I have agreed I am going to go over things with you in voice chat eventually. I just thought I'd show you, I could do a tutorial for everyone. That way we can all work through it step by step together. So we are covering this, we're going to be covering these subjects again, Jermaine. You don't have to worry about that. And it's not going to be just on stream. We're going to be doing it one-on-one. That way we can actually make sure everything is step by step for you. And we can make sure everything is at your pace. Okay. You think we've covered enough until we can get to our like our study session? I guess it would be our one-on-one study session eventually. Or do you want me to do a little bit more? Okay, let's see. I am looking at the Discord. Okay. The first one was a little off, and the second one was still a little funky, but you're really getting it on the very last one. You even got the landscaping really good. You've got the little lip of the foam from the water. Got a slightly darker hue as you flare out. The third one is almost perfect. You just forgot to add the foam sort of thing that happens when the water connects to sand on that one. But overall, I think the third and the fourth one are my favorites. That's really good, Jermaine. The only thing you sort of forgot is on the third one, I want you to start working on your shading of how the front surfboard would affect the back one and how the back one would affect the things behind it, or vice versa, considering where your light is coming from. I think that's going to be your homework assignment. Can't believe I'm giving you homework. Homework practice. Practice your shading and your light sources. And then by the time I think I'm going to be free, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be free next week sometime, and we can go over everything. So I say, if I don't have work on Tuesday of next week, not this coming week, the week after this coming week, the 4th of July week. If on Tuesday of 4th of July week, we are unclear, we can start working on that again. But I'm going to finish doing the light sources on this one, since you need a little bit more study, and then we can, okay, the first and the second. The first one, you see how you did that wavy pattern? That's not how things would actually look on the beach. Because considering from where you're looking, it looks more like you're looking out at the sea than you are down at the beach, because of the way you position the sun. And the second one is pretty much perfect. You just made the ocean a little too flat. Because of the ocean, you have to make it a little slightly sort of random on it is, because the way you connect the sky and the sea is too flat. You have that sort of problem on every single one of them with the ocean, except for on number 4, where you start doing a slight wave on the 4th image. But overall, it's really good. You're really improving on your backgrounds and everything. I myself struggle with backgrounds all the time. That's why I'm constantly trying to improve. But it's not like there's actually anything wrong with them. It's just that there's slight improvements you can make, but they're very slight. You're doing pretty good. Yeah, palm tree has lots of leaves. I didn't have really any problem with the leaves, because you go for a lineless style. That's fine. It looks like you're going for a more simple style on the leaves, and that's actually perfect for how you're trying to do things. I would recommend just adding very slight line difference in between the leaves. That way you can differentiate them. But I wouldn't do it too thickly, just like a tiny, very thin line in between leaves, just to give them a little definition. I'm gonna make the bowling ball look like my bowling ball. This is not my brush. This is my brush. It's cheese. I have a Tom and Jerry cheese ball. Got it at a pawn shop. Not a pawn shop. Antique mall. Now, when it comes to this, we're going to have to do something very, very different, because we have to also consider the shading on the finger holes. See how I'm doing that? You want them to look like they have an edge. There we go. Now we're going to start adding the shadow. And the shadow is just going to be straight on black because, you know, it's not actually connected to anything, so it doesn't have to worry about it being colored. And we're just going to do it from there. And we're just going to turn the color back so we can actually do this right. Okay, we're just gonna get rid of the excess. Bam. And we're gonna move the bowling ball a little behind the vase. Properly sit it down. All right. There. Now we're gonna do it 250. And it's got the shadow from the vase. And we're just gonna move the little thing over a bit more. That way we can get a good shadow for the stereo. And you also have to consider the shadow it casts. So from the bowling ball, from the bowling ball, and then we're just gonna do a 50. And I'm just gonna do something I forget. No, not. I'm gonna fuzz out the details around the shadow, because shadow is not a solid thing. It's a light, so it's not gonna be solid. Just gonna fuzz it out. See, it's a lot darker behind the bowling ball. Now I'm just gonna select this again. Just gonna go shrip. I'm gonna go shrip. And we're gonna do things a bit differently under the bowling ball. Okay, I'm looking at your new background to me. There you go. See, the subtle differences you did with the waves really pulls it together, because you are seeing the slight up and down of the waves as they go. Now, because it's rounded, we're just going to go here. Because it's on an actual table, we're going to use the browns we used before and just go and just blur it. Just blur it out. Now I'm going to get rid of the bowling ball, and I'm going to get rid of the light from the bowling ball. And you'll see it added a slight color difference. Well, with how you're doing things, you're going for a lineless style, so I think that actually the lineless style on the leaves is perfect for it, because everything else is completely lineless. I think if you added the shading that I recommend for other things in your style, because you have some lines and everything, it would ruin it, and you have no shading at all in this picture. I would not ruin it by adding any shading. It looks really good. You do not have to add any shading to that one. Okay, Jimmy. Do you see how the shadows were? You think that's good? Or is there anything else you think we could cover? Or am I good to go to sleep today? Because we are going to be covering more later. You never have to worry about that. We are going to be covering more. Just I'm a bit tired for now. And next time I'm also going to be yes. You also have to consider next time I'm on, and if I can actually get to that study thing like I was talking, I'm gonna show you how to do a shadow for under here. Because you see, it looks sort of off, having no shadow, even though there's this big old bit right here that should be shadowed. And that is correct. There should be a bit that is shadowed, because there's no light source coming from here. You'd think there'd be like a shadow coming from like right here. Usually that would be true if the light source was up here. But seeing as the light source is here and not here, the shadow, if it was up here, would be going and having the shadow here. But because it's here, there's no way for shadow to be casted this way. Only for shadow to be casted this way, because of the shadow casted from there. Yeah, go ahead and tell me. Why have you been making backgrounds? Is it because you're working on that comic thing? Okay. Well, if you wanted to work on more backgrounds, you work on more backgrounds. Because I'm not very good at backgrounds. I will say that very, very easily. That's the struggle about having characters. You want to make sure they fit perfectly into their environments, but the struggle is actually making an environment you think would actually fit them. Because that's the trouble with character design. Not only do you have to consider the character, you also have to consider where would they fit best. Anyway, I think that's going to be all I can show you because I'm too tired to think anymore. So, I think if I do not have work on Tuesday, I should... Yeah, you have a lot of surfing themed characters. I think I should be available on Tuesday, not this coming Tuesday, the Tuesday after that. I think I should be, as long as my boss doesn't schedule me that day. I should be able to walk you through everything with you, make sure everything's done step by step, slow down a bit for you. So I was trying to fit all this into one stream, and it's already been an hour and 30 minutes. And we have barely done anything for our image. Okay. But I'm just going to call it a night for tonight, Jermaine. It has been a pleasure to walk through stuff with you, and we can do more of that eventually, but for now I'm just too tired to continue. My brain cannot think. So until next time, my precious honeybees, and until our tutoring session, I guess it would be, Jermaine, Queenie Bee, signing out. Bye. See you in the server.